In this video, I really am going to tell you something that is so critical that we were never told. I love this, what they didn't tell you. The they, who are they? Our parents, our teachers. This is something that is really important. You really need to know it now. We need to know it in this time that we are in. And yes, I channeled Einstein for this video, so stay tuned. Okay, yes, I channeled Einstein for this video content, and it was a bit more like a download. And then I noticed that I was having a conversation with someone about this content, and then I asked who it was and heard him introduce himself, because I've never met him, as Einstein. It was channeling, but it is more of a mediumistic connection where I'm asking questions. He did drop some information in, and then we had a conversation to pull this through. Now, this is the piece that is channeled. What Einstein told me is that there is no truth, whether in science or spirit, unless it is balanced in the human requirements of logic and meaning. Now, I have actually been teaching on the lines of this for a while now, but this coming in as crystallized as it has, it really was the way that Einstein phrased it is kind of letting it set in a new way. So nothing is truth. We should break this down a little bit. Truth is something that this word is more something that is reserved for something that is universalized, meaning it is true and that it is going to 100% definitely help me. And also there's a collective kind of a consensus truth about it, because there's a difference between truth and reality. Reality is something that is helpful and relevant and may be resonant for you as an individual, just like art. And Einstein wanted me to say this right up front, because when we say there is no truth, whether in science or spirit, unless it is balanced in the human requirements of logic and meaning, it doesn't mean that either logic or meaning, that these are even juxtaposed. It's just they need to be balanced in this. So as it comes to a reality, something that is real or beneficial or helpful or resonant for you, that is meaning, something that is meaningful to you. But if it's meaningful to you, doesn't mean it is meaningful for someone else necessarily. We could have collective meaning and we could have collective things. And what he wanted to boil this down to was, think of art. Art is a reality. It triggers a sense of reality and resonance within you. It can trigger, it can amplify something that is meaningful for you. But is art truth? Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it? So please keep these things in your awareness, because we need both fact and reality. And your reality is valid and important, and it can inform what is going to make you a better human and develop your character, make you healthier. But there is a difference, there is something greater to this idea of truth. So that is what we're working on. And the problem that we have right now, and the reason why you need to know this right now, is because we have a lack of education and guidance for how we are making meaning of information. And what it all comes down to is believing fear-based emotions. Not just believing, but identifying with. Emotions should never be identity. Emotions are meaningful. Emotions are valuable. Emotions are a reality that is occurring, but emotions should never be identified with. They should never be an identity. And by the way, even the positive ones, because if we identify with a positive emotion, meaning that we try to hold it and make it truth, well, when you identify with it, when you try to hold on to it, then you can be actually invalidating negative emotions, and we need all of it. And anytime that we negate the validity of anything, we actually draw it to ourselves, because the universe is all that is. So we can't say this thing is invalid and this thing is invalid. If we do, then the universe is like, oh, well, yes, it is. And until you recognize that it is valid, then you will draw it to you. So this might be bringing some of you, if you want to get into the self-reflection state. Is there anything that I am seeing as a pattern? Is there anything that keep drawing to me? Am I invalidating that as a relevant experience to have? And it might come all the way down to your emotional state about that. Your emotional state about the thing that you feel you do not want. I don't want it. It is invalid in my life. But just the state of it is something that can be processed and can be moving through you so that we don't identify to it. So if we identify to a positive emotion, we identify to a negative emotion, we are going to then be invalidating something else. And by the way, that is where we get into loops. And this is also how we get into conflict. So it does all come down to, you'll hear me repeat this because it's so important. We are talking about emotional states. States are valuable for processing. States are valuable as helping information to move, but states are never, or emotions never should be identity. So we are talking about truth. And just to get back to what Einstein wanted to say about this is there is no truth, whether in science or spirit, unless it is balanced with the requirements of the human condition, which is logic and meaning. So we need some kind of a balance of logic, something that is empirical, something that is relevant in a consensus way. And we also need it to have meaning and life, intuition and art and creativity. It needs some kind of balance of it. And I'm not saying it needs to be 50-50. Maybe it is something that is 90% meaningful, intuitive, and creative, and 10% somehow having logic to it. Even our art needs to have some balance of something that would make it logical of how it could fit into the human condition. And what do I mean by that? Well, just think about it. If you create art that actually harms someone else, it's come through something that is creative and meaningful. But if it could harm someone, that's not logical. It's not helpful. Therefore, it wouldn't have the element of truth in it. And that's what we're talking about. But get back to what the subject at hand is that we have a problem in society right now. Have you noticed? We have a problem. We are in such conflict. And it's not just the fact that we are butting heads against other people. It's that even in the polarized positions, the individuals are feeling they're suffering. So I'm going to say the dirty P word, politics. We have people who have this political meaning stance that they're on, this one political meaning stance. And sure, it's uncomfortable when they're actually arguing and butting heads, but it's also miserable to be that polarized, even in that position. And I'm not saying it's you, by the way. Maybe you aren't having this issue, but you're witnessing it, and that's uncomfortable, that's unpleasant, that's painful. So how did we get here? We got here because we identified with emotions. You see, people are running around saying, if you don't have my exact beliefs, then I can't talk to you at all. We can't have, all I can do is be upset with you and see if I can clobber you with the identification I have with my emotions. Now, here's the thing. You can be 100% correct about something and still not be identified to the emotions of it. And that is the only hope or opportunity that you have to also have a connection with another person who may be on the other side of that opinion or perspective. Both of you will need to be neutral of your emotions in the moment that you have a discussion. So here is how we got to the place of having such polarized stances to where people can't even, yes, it is because people have identified with their emotions about something, and how they got to the place where it's an all or nothing with other people is because we're all in a hyper-suggestible state. Hyper-suggestibility. Listen to what that is. Suggestions mean I receive suggestions. And then as those suggestions are received, I have an emotional response to it. And then I've identified to those emotions. And so now my state is having a hard time shifting and changing. That is our problem. So no matter where you are on any of the poles, even if you're in the center, we need to work on our hypersuggestibility. That is our problem all around. Being able to receive information from the outside, have an emotional response to it that we identify with, that we believe that is what we need to keep us safe, but in fact, it is making us unsafe. It is making us unhealthy physically, emotionally, and mentally. And it is also making us unhealthy as a collective because we cannot collect together. We cannot unify. We cannot come together and love one another. Hypersuggestibility is the thing that you can work on, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. Okay, I'm telling you that we are all hypersuggestible. We're all vulnerable or open to receiving suggestions from the outside, which then creates this process of having strong emotions that we then identify to. We feel unsafe. And then we now are sticking in some emotional identity, which is honestly, when we do that, we are cutting off other information. So we're kind of like we're making ourselves stupid. I'll just say it. And when we're making ourselves stupid because we've cut ourselves off from other information, then we're actually more magnetic for more stupid information, if you will. And I'm sorry to be so flippant, but it's just sometimes that's what we need to hear is that, when we do something like that, we are going to make ourselves stupid. So I'm going to start with what you don't. Well, how do you know? First of all, is when you feel fearful or when you feel angry even. Now, again, if we're holding on to it and we want to project it out, that is not helpful. It is not going to change anyone's heart or mind. So anytime we're basically feeling a strong emotion, we need to not identify to it. Anytime we're feeling anything, we are in a state of some kind of hypnosis. That means that we are hypersuggestible. We could receive information and we can then make it feel like it will feel like it is our own. And other times that we're hypersuggestible is when we're really tired, when we're stress is a kind of fight flight, any worry, stress, depression, or just exhaustion. These are times when we need to get grounded. These are times where we need to actually make sure that we are not communicating from that place. So let me tell you what don't do first. When you are in an emotional or hypersuggestible state, don't communicate. Certainly not from a fearful emotional state, including speaking to someone else. Meaning that unless it's just very simple, like, yes, thank you, here's the coffee, obviously. Do not negotiate, do not speak with someone else. At that time, see what you can do to get yourself out of that hypersuggestible state. And because we could turn that into a blame or victim situation either way. And the exceptions of that, if you're in a fearful emotional state, is if you are actually talking to your partner and you're asking for their help with your fearful emotions. And you're not projecting them and saying it's your fault, this thing that I'm feeling, but you're saying I need some help with this. That's a safe place to do it. Another exception is speaking with a qualified therapist. You can say, I have these fearful emotions. Can you help me with them? Those are the exceptions. The other way that we want to not engage in communication is we don't want to engage with the fourth dimension. And what do I mean by the fourth dimension? Well, the fourth dimension is the chaotic space of non-physical. And the way that we actually have that realized very much in our lives right now is a virtual 4D that shows up in our lives in this very moment. You are engaging with the fourth dimension. Social media, broadcast media, that is actually putting sound and light, the elements of sound and light to the fourth dimension. Now, is it only chaos? Is it only like chaos in the negative sense? No, there's also beauty and order and art in the virtual fourth dimension. So until you have your feet underneath you grounded and you are not in an emotional, fearful state, you are not hypersuggestible, don't go to that fourth dimension. And that's how people get into scroll holes too, because they're actually feeling maybe a low-key kind of anxiety and they're trying to distract themselves. But then there's so many different suggestions, so much kind of information that is dropping into their psyche. And that's what advertisers are betting on, that they'll be able to drop in there during that hypersuggestible state. So don't engage in the virtual fourth dimension of social media, broadcast media, or any of those things. And especially don't engage in it when you're in the fearful, emotional, hypersuggestible state. Do not engage in it to look for answers to your problems at that time. Not at that time. I'll give you the do's, and then you can go to online and try to solve your problems. So those are the don'ts. Don't communicate in a fearful emotional state unless it is with your partner and you're asking for support, or with a qualified therapist and you're asking for support. And don't engage in the virtual fourth dimension, and especially to try and solve your problems at that time. So here's the do's. Get logical. And one way you can get logical is if you let the emotions flow and then kind of look at them logically and say, oh, is it true? Like there's this technique that people will use where if you're having some kind of self-doubt or self-criticism, is that you actually create an animated voice to the self-critic and you go like, oh, I'm so dumb, and you make a Mickey Mouse voice of it, you're actually kind of putting a logical perspective on that thing that you need to process. It seems like I'm saying logical to use a Mickey Mouse voice, but it is because you're not identifying to it. You're disidentifying to it and you're watching it as it leaves. Grounding is the next thing. Any kind of grounding that you can. Don't pick up the phone and chew out your mom or your friend or whoever, or get on Twitter, X, and say your politics are wrong and here's why, even if they may be wrong. I'll just say that just to give you permission to know that it's still not the right time to do it. Go take a walk. Meditate and ground yourself. Do a grounding exercise, such as just visualizing being on the ground, feeling the gravity, and growing roots into the ground. Go for a walk before you pick up the phone to do anything. Because every time your foot falls on the earth, you are releasing that chaotic energy and you are coming present. So yes, we're talking about getting mindful. So find some logic, get grounded, and raise your vibration. And all of these really amount to raising your vibration. Then as you do that, you could go to the virtual fourth dimension of social media, broadcast media, or anything with the intention of raising your vibration. So you could go use your phone app to find that meditation that you know always raises your vibration, or to find that really inspirational song that you can sing to, or that yoga session that you love to do that helps you to get grounded. So if you go to, in that time, you can go to it with a very specific intention, find that and use it as support for that, but get out for any other purposes until you are grounded, more logical, and your vibration has been raised. So seek a positive message, seek that positive meditation, and especially from a trusted source of positivity for you. And you know what else? Comedy. Comedy is a great way to raise your vibration. And it's off the subject of the thing that you might be feeling a negative, emotional, fearful state about. And it can really help you. So try any of those things, those don'ts, and then try those do's. The whole world is in a hyper-suggestible state. And this is leading us to, plainly speaking, religious wars all over the place. And this war is a war over dogma. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm not religious, so that's not a problem for me. And I hope so. And I hope that for myself. But I want to make sure that we understand that the difference between spirituality and religion, one of the differences is when dogma comes in. Religion, first of all, is when there's an outside authority that tells you this is what you should believe. So spirituality is completely from within. Dogma, in a religious sense, is when we actually want someone else to validate our beliefs or believe the same way as us. And we care about what other people believe. We care about what they think about how we believe, and we want them to believe differently. All of that is in the area of dogma. So you see how politics have become a dogmatic religion in a lot of our spaces. And I'm not saying it's you, but maybe it is. I'm not saying it's me, but maybe sometimes it is too. So I wanted to just bring that to our awareness. That is our problem. The hypersuggestibility is leading to all kinds of religious and dogmatic wars between two people. Obviously that's happening between countries at this time. So religion isn't only based upon knowing that there is some kind of God and a tenet of faith. Dogma can be around anything. And dogma is when we care and insist on someone else's beliefs. That's a problem. So remember, spirituality becomes religious dogma when you insist that another person accept your beliefs as their own. And this includes excluding someone as valid in their beliefs because their beliefs or viewpoints are different from your own. And you can replace spirituality with other words and it rings true, such as wisdom. Wisdom becomes religious dogma when you insist that another person accept your beliefs as their own. Or compassion. Compassion becomes religious dogma when you insist that another person accept your beliefs as though they are their own. So to recap, we have a problem both individually and collectively of being hypersuggestible. Our hypersuggestibility happens when we are maybe really exhausted, but especially when we are in any kind of emotional state. When we're in an emotional state and we identify to those emotions, then we are even more hypersuggestible. It is a loop. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is lather, rinse, repeat over and over again. So what we want to do is always get logical, grounded, and raise our vibration. And that is going to bring us out of the hypersuggestible state, and it's going to make us more properly resourceful of that which Einstein said is what we need in order for something to develop into truth, which is a balance as it relates to the human condition, a balance of logic and meaning. And the only way that we could reach the heart of another is to have a safe place to actually exchange ideas. Because this is from Gene Keys, the Gene Keys by Richard Rudd. It's Gene Key 6. Conflict breaks out whenever two or more people agree to identify with their emotional state. As long as you surrender your will to the emotional system, then you will be trapped by its volatile nature. Surrendering your will to your emotional system is by identifying to your emotions, making you even more hypersuggestible to receive information into your form that you may not really want to be a part of your life. It may not be your true value, and it may not be helping you to be exactly who you truly are, which is exactly who we need. So once again, Einstein wants to let us know that there is no truth, whether in science or spirit, unless it is balanced in the human requirements of logic and meaning. And the way we can get to the place to balance logic and meaning is to get into a balanced state, grounded, and we want to move into the place where we can be masterful of our suggestibility, masterful of how we are pulling in information, to be able to be, I'll just say it, it's a video I'm going to do pretty soon, a conscious somnambulist, someone who can move between the dimensions of spirit with their full sovereignty. That is our goal. And so with that, I will leave you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned for that other video that I'm going to be sharing with you about being a conscious somnambulist. I don't know when it's coming, but you'll like it. And check the description for all of the cool things that are going on. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. And thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.